The other night, I was listening to some tunes and browsing Pinterest, and I was reminded of my long-standing love of massive one-page doodles. But it dawned on me that even though I've always loved this type of art, I've never tried to make one myself. So today, for the first time, I'm going to be drawing a doodle of all my favorite things in Procreate. Okay, so here's my plan. I'm going to find 10 objects around my house that represent 10 things I love. Then in Procreate, I'm going to sketch each one of them out individually on their own layer. After that, I'll use the flexibility of digital art to lay them out in an aesthetic composition. Then I'll fill in the gaps with smaller doodle characters, ink over it all, and finally finish everything off with coloring and shading. Anyway, that's the plan. Hope it works, and wish me luck. So for my first object, I'm going to sketch a Polaroid camera to represent my love of photography. So let's take a reference photo of the camera and bring it in Procreate. Now I'm going to do a quick sketch using the 6B pencil. I do this freehand and iterate by repeatedly drawing over my sketch on new layers till things look right. If you struggle with drawing, you could try drawing with a grid at sight size, or simply trace over your reference photo, whatever floats your boat. Okay, this is looking good. Let's keep moving. Drawing number 2 is going to be a record player to represent my love of music. I have music on all the time. It's a big inspiration for me. And not only do I love listening to music, but I also love making music with synths, drum machines, guitars, pianos, and singing. Alright, I'm calling this one done. 2 down, 8 to go. For drawing number 3, I'm going with an old-fashioned TV.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow.
To represent my love of movies and TV. Let's add a cute face and we can call this one done for now. For drawing number 4, I'm going with a book to represent my love of, well, books. Because I do love reading, whether it's fiction, non-fiction, manga, graphic novels, or comic books. It doesn't really matter. I love it all. Okay, we're almost at the halfway point. Let's hydrate and keep going. Okay, I'm back. Let's get started. So for drawing number 5, we are going with a video game controller. Because who doesn't love video games? Video games have always been a huge part of my childhood. I wish I had more time to play these days, but it still deserves a spot on this list.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
Now that this is done, time to reveal what drawing number 6 is. And it's going to be a paint tube, because I gotta represent art. Since the moment I could hold a pencil, art has always been my very first creative love. Other creative pursuits have come and gone, but art has always stuck around. Alright, this cute dude is done for now. My next drawing is going to be a pair of sneakers. Because not gonna lie, there's nothing better than the feeling of a fresh new pair of sneakers. Alright, I think this one is good to go. And in the number 8 spot, we got Lego. Because even as a grown adult, I still love toys. They represent my deep belief in the importance of play. Don't stop playing, kids. Growing up stinks, but on the plus side, you get to buy all the action figures you never got as a child. Alright, number 8 is done. 2 more to go. Must keep going. For my 9th drawing, I chose to draw on my laptop to represent my long-standing love of technology. There are a lot of things I could have chosen to represent technology, but a computer is probably the thing I use the most. Not to mention, it just looks so darn cute with a face on it. And now we finally reached the last and final drawing, and it's going to be, drumroll please, a D20. As a shout out to my love of tabletop gaming. There's nothing like gathering with your friends and family and playing a board game or a tabletop RPG. It's tactile, social, and often steeped in great art direction. Okay, last drawing done. Let's take a quick snack break to refuel. Ah, that feels good. On to step 2, laying out our composition. First, I hide my background and fill in each of my objects with white, so that each drawing becomes a self-contained object like this. I then use the free Jabjai font from dafont.com to write out my favorite things. Once I have it laid out the way I want, I rasterize it and fill it with white. Now that I have this text and all my drawings are filled and on separate layers, it's easy for me to move things around, rotate, flip, and reorder layers to get just the right composition I want. I even go ahead and add a couple of more favorite items to fill in the larger gaps. Now I continue drawing and filling in the gaps with smaller doodle characters. I first start with drawing random character shapes, ignoring face details for now, and just focusing on overall composition. Character shapes can be anything. Here are a few examples. I then follow up by filling in the faces with various eyes and mouth styles, and sometimes the occasional nose. To help me with this, I browse Pinterest for inspiration on different styles of eyes and mouths. Then I randomly mix and match, improvise with my own flair. Once I'm happy with my final sketch, I create a new layer and begin step 3, inking. This is my favorite step, and it's so satisfying. For uniform lines, I use the Monoline brush, but for more expressive lines, I use the syrup brush. Oh, and I try to vary line thickness to create balance, separation, and interest.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. You just don't. Still selling false hope cause you just don't care.
Okay, I'm happy with how this looks. So let's move on to step 4, coloring. To do this, I mark my ink layer as my reference and create a new layer below my reference. Now I drag and drop my colors onto this layer. Here's how I approached my color palette. To keep things harmonious, I just chose 4 basic colors for my doodles: red, pink, blue, and green, each with a light and dark version. Then I chose yellow as an accent color, also with 3 shades. Finally, for the shadows and in-between areas, I used a selection of dark purples. Oh, and a light gray for shading white areas. My color strategy was this. I would color a doodle with one of the 4 colors, then have an adjacent doodle be another color, and so on, in a way that I never had 2 doodles of the same color adjacent to each other. This way I have variation, but everything is tied together at the same time with this looping of colors. I would then use yellow for a pop of accent color, and the purples to fill in the gaps. Once I have my basic colors in place, I move on to step 5, shading. To add shading, I create a new layer above my colors. Here is an example of how I approach shading a character. I use the chalk brush and lay in the darker color of the base color for the shadows. Then I create the deeper shadows using a dark purple. I next do the lighter side of the doodle using the light version of the base color. I add a rim light using my accent yellow, and then add highlights using white, including a bounce light into shadows. I repeat this for all the colors on the character. Oh, and if a character has white eyes or teeth, I use the gray for the shadows. Now I do this for all my characters.
Cutting the power lines, we're done talking about it. A spark turns into fire, and we're not sorry about it. If you're not sleeping tight, you know we're onto something. You hear the streets are crying, ocean turns into fighting.
I fade down the shading layer to make it more subtle. I then color correct with some hue, saturation, and brightness, and finally I alpha lock my ink layer and paint my outlines a dark purple. And that's it. I think I'm calling this done. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Is it as good as those done by my Doodle art heroes? Nah, definitely not, but for a first attempt, I'm pleased. And the most important thing is I learned a lot, and I had fun doing it. Not to mention I have a greater appreciation for what goes into this type of art. If I was to do this again, the biggest thing I would change is I would start with a thumbnail sketch of the entire composition on the same page, so that I could make sure the composition is good right from the beginning, because it's so hard to fix later, and laying it out digitally wasn't the magic bullet I thought it would be. So anyway, can't wait to try this again. But for now, let's just print this out nice and big. While we're at it, let's frame it and put it up somewhere where it can be a great reminder of all the things I'm passionate about. Well, I hope that was helpful and inspires you to make your own mega doodle of all the things you love. You can also visit rishidraws.com and download a free coloring page of this doodle and join in the fun that way. Either way, thanks for letting me be a part of your art journey. Bye!
Driving around in California, looking for something to make me stay.
I'm an odd person, I run in dark circles. I would love a long life, cause I love how life's worthless. I'ma paint purple, cause blue's overrated. We all outdated, we all so jaded. Hope you feel that my heart's there though.